You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Christopher Media, let's make some noise.
Oh, hi. I'm Andrew Palmer with Rocksteady University, and I want to welcome you wonderful parents and these beautiful new freshmen to our amazing school, a school that kids are dying to get into. A place where your kids can learn a higher education. Safety is our highest priority. Your children are going to find friends that last a lifetime. What's got you waiting? Join us at Rocksteady University. And don't forget, bring your bike.
Welcome to a special episode of The Projection Booth. I'm your host, Mike White. On this episode, I am talking about the film Rocksteady Row. I mentioned this over on the Yojimbo episode that we just put out, and this is another take on the Yojimbo story. Highly recommended. This film is about a college student, a freshman who comes to school to find a group, two groups actually, of frats that are in an illegal bicycle trade, let's say, and all kinds of great stuff happens. Really recommend this film. I mentioned in the interview that this won the both the Audience Award and first place at the Slamdance Film Festival this year. Well deserved. So you're going to hear from Trevor Stevens, who is the director of the film, and Bomani Story, who is the writer from the film. And let's go ahead and roll that interview. How did you decide to get into show business?
This is Bomani. I actually didn't know that it was something I wanted to do until I was about 17, 18, and it was at the end of my high school run. I was too busy kind of like doing stuff in high school. Like my grades were poor and I was getting suspended for fighting and stuff like that. And then I don't know, my counselor kept putting me in this film class. Then I was just like, I don't want to fight and get suspended anymore. It's like I kind of discovered my love for film. And I was just like, and my mom was like, maybe you should pursue that. And my grades were too low to kind of go to a college. So I decided to go, I discovered like a community college. And then I did that to kind of get good grades. And then I transferred into USC and started really learning about film there and watching movies. And after that, it was kind of just like history. I kind of became obsessive with it, and it kind of changed my life.
Was there one movie in particular that you remember that really you said, this is what I want to do?
Yeah. I mean, there's always childhood movies that you just see in passing, that affect you, but you're not really I want to make movies. So it's to me, it's I have the childhood movies that left a giant impact, which was Menace to Society and Forrest Gump and Boys in the Hood. But the movies that made me be playing with form and stuff like that was this movie called Ace in the Hole by Billy Wilder and this other movie called The Fountain by Darren Aronofsky.
Trevor, same question for you. What got you interested in movies?
I started out as a 10-year-old doing competitive ballroom dance. And so that was where I first got the bug of entertainment. I would do West Coast swing and Latin dancing as a child from ages 10 to 12. And after that stint, that kind of naturally led me into doing plays with musical theater and things that incorporate my dance background. And I had a friend who did a lot of acting and stage, so it kind of was a slow transition that way when I got out of dance, and I did acting. And then as I started to act, it led to the possibilities of going on auditions. And I remember auditioning for really crazy stuff at a really young age. I auditioned for Shark Boy and Lava Girl and Young Dexter for the show Dexter. It was crazy. And I started getting a manager and agent, and then it was on the low budget sets or the student films where it wasn't just a payday. I got to actually ask questions. I got to be what's going on behind the scenes? What's this light meter doing? What's that? What's this? What's all that? And They were so nice to me, and they're very, they welcomed me in with open arms. Sometimes they let me come in on days where I wasn't even supposed to be in, just to come check things out. And I became fascinated, and I was at age 12, and so I knew pretty much at that age that like there was nothing on God's green earth that I wanted to do more than this. I don't think I realized that it was a job. I mean, when you're a kid, you're not thinking about it, and you're so focused on the obvious, and I loved entertaining. I loved being in front of a huge crowd. I had to be. It was like part of my DNA structure. That's why dance and acting was so important to me. But once I realized what this was, I realized, holy shit, you can tell stories. Like, this is what I had to do. And so I picked up my dad's DV camera, and I went to work. I enlisted every person in the neighborhood I could, and I started making childhood home movies, all action based, and all of course at that point in time, like the story was very rough, and it was mainly just about using airsoft guns and being the next action hero, if you will. But as I got into high school, the films grabbed form, and I actually was in the same advanced multimedia class that Bomani was in. We went to the same high school, except he was 4 years ahead of me, so he essentially ghosted out of that club by the time I even came to be in that club. But as I was getting to that, we weirdly enough met around the same time. We both had a mentor in the city who introduced us to each other, and we had no idea each other existed. We never met each other in high school, but he sort of took me under his wing and mentored me with another friend of ours, and it was a nice pairing that we got to meet up, and we ended up doing this like homegrown commercial contest together. And that's where we first worked together, and we won this huge check for like $1,000, which at the time was a big deal to us. And that was for like the Omnitrans bus company. And from then on, we've been working together ever since.
Well, tell me about some of those other earlier projects before you guys decided to make a feature.
If I had a really quick way of summing it up, I would say trial and error. And I mean that in the best way possible, because, there was nothing, and I repeat, with the exception of porn, there was nothing that we did not try. Yeah. We did music videos, commercials, we've shot so many different, local government type stuff, PSAs, short form, extended short form, really short form. I mean, we had the chance to tackle a lot of ground, and we were lucky enough to have, a lot of family support and city support. So we not only did projects for the city and people in the city, but we also, were able to borrow them for a lot of our projects. And so there's this nice turnaround there. Yeah. And so Bomani jumping in, and, another one of our things we did. So we did this thing called the 48-Hour Film Festival. And I think, was it 3 years in a row we did it? 3 years in a row. Yeah. We did it 3 years in a row. And the first two were first one was really not good. We don't talk about it. Yeah, don't talk about it. The second one was it was decent. It kind of had a genre going for it, but it was, it was still very still rough around the edges. And then we did a third one where we really all kind of just got into it, and we're just okay, listen, we're not going to do something that we think is cool. We're going to do what we want to do, what we think is cool, which was a Western. And so we figured out how to accomplish doing a Western in 48 hours, This is Trevor. To hop in real quick, just for any viewers, anyone listening that does not know what the 48-hour film contest is, essentially it is a contest where you're given a slip with a genre and a quote and a prop on a Friday afternoon, and you have to have a completed film by that following Sunday evening. Fully complete. You have to have written it, shot it, and delivered it. A short, 5 to 7 minute film in that time span. And you don't know what the genre is going to be until you get that card. And that's what is so tough about it. That's why you imagine jumping into it for the first time. A lot of times it just comes out kind of incoherent nonsense because, especially the first year we were brought in as a group. And so we were just kind of helping out. And it was talking to a huge bunch of people, and they're just people that are all on a different page. So it took a whole first night of no sleep of, deliberation just to get anything going. So we learned our lesson there and had a very compact team in the second year. And we had a film and it was, concise and coherent. And then I think we really got our stride in the third year because what we realized was, you know what? We're going to make this a Western no matter what. We're just going to, spin this with another genre for where we get. So if it was a comedy, we're going to make a Western comedy. If it was, musical, we're going to make a Western musical. And we were thinking, just watch, we get the weirdest thing. And I forgot what it was. There was like the one genre that we just couldn't quite spin. And so if that happens, you can pull a wild card genre. It's like your last hurrah. But that's almost more dangerous because those genres get into really weird territory. And what we got was Doppelganger. So we had to do a Doppelganger Western. Yeah. And it led to a pretty interesting tale, but whatever it was ended up working because we won our division of a 40-hour film festival. And we were sent to Miami Film Festival to get the show off.
Now me and Trevor always have like a thing where we're just like, we got to get back to Miami. Yeah. We got to get back to Miami.
We'll always have Miami.
Yeah.
So tell me about the origins of Rocksteady Row. First off, when did you guys decide this is the time we're going to make a feature? Or did the story come first and you said this has to be a feature?
Elements of both. I mean, me and Bomani already had a working relationship. I mean, Bomani himself is a writer-director, but I've always been able to work with him as a writer. I mean, we've always had a very similar track mind when it comes to stories. So, we've already had the rapport of being able to work together on a couple different shorts in that capacity. But I told him this was probably around the end of college, maybe end of college for me. I came to Bomani. I was just like, I really want to do a spaghetti Western in a college setting. And I told him that it was kind of like the origin of just saying like, this is what I want to do. And I told him kind of just a general layout of the type of thing I want to do. And he was just like, okay, I can do you one better. And he came back with me with this, like, he's just like, I have a lot of tales from college that need to be told in a peculiar way. And a lot of them dealt with, like, his bike being stolen on college campus and the things that he personally witnessed firsthand. And from there, we sat down and kind of just like brought stuff to the table that we appreciate. It happened to be that I was a huge Sergio Leone fan, and I actually showed him Fistful of Dollars, and he was a huge Kurosawa fan, and he showed me Yojimbo, and that's where we kind of were like, we got to infuse like our lives with these movies.
Trevor had, he was always just like, he had been saying it for like, I don't know how long, like his whole life. He's like, man, I want to do a spaghetti Western. I want to do a spaghetti Western, like in like some kind of school setting or whatever. And so he brought that to me, and then I like, it immediately reminded me of just like, cause my first day at college, I had bought like a tricked out bike, and then, and it got stolen, and I was super pissed off about it. And it inspired me to like write this tale about the school being in on it and everyone trying to fuck me over out of my bike. And like, I remembered that. And that's when I was like, yo, like, I got my bike stolen when I was in college, and then like, we're just like, we put them both together, like you said, and then we both were putting shit on the table to make this tale.
We both love genre mashups, and, we both have this huge love and affinity for, Leone's spaghetti Westerns and, Kurosawa samurai films. And I think that it was very natural for us to want to translate into something modern. It happened to be that, like, we always wanted to tackle, like, either a high school or a college film. We thought that, like, both were really right for the telling. One of our favorite movies, together that we used to watch a lot was Brick. And not only is it a fantastic example of a first feature film and using your resources wisely, but it's just a damn good movie, and it's a damn good genre mashup. And we took a lot of inspiration from that too. And again, we didn't want to, when it came to all these movies, we didn't want to just, ride on those coattails, but we wanted to do our own thing. Like, we were very inspired to do that. And whereas I think there was a little more of a realistic approach with Brick, we wanted to jump on the other side of that territory, and we wanted to really paint a different canvas for college that you've ever seen. Because for me, when I looked at college, it was just like, it's always in the National Lampoon movies, like I can't think of a college movie without like a big, pair of breasts or just like a bunch of booze or like, like John Belushi at the front of the cover. You know what I mean? Like, just like that's usually what you see. And, you know, that's fine and all. And those movies have, you know, garnered such a huge, like, you know, a huge, like, idea of the college film, you know, down to, like, Van Wilder, right? But we really wanted to tackle a different way because we saw that there's so many different things going on college campuses, especially up to today's world, where, like, this subject had to be tackled. But it didn't necessarily have to be tackled straightforward, like, you know, necessarily like a true docu, you know, style film. Like, there's these issues, but you also want to have that popcorn flip. You want to enjoy what you're watching. You want to challenge it. And you want to tell in a way that's not going to feel preachy per se. Mm-hmm. And so we saw this as an avenue to do an action film, right? We get our spaghetti western. We had to have our cake and eat it too, and we'd have really fun with the genre, really fun with the setting, and we get to also, you know, sprinkle in elements of college that not everyone talks or thinks about in a film, but need to be tackled. And so that was kind of our beautiful way of being able to wrap up all that stuff in the one pretty bow and do something a little bit crazy for our first feature.
Short films are very difficult, very, very tough to make. There's no doubt about that. But to jump from that to a feature, I mean, that's a whole other ball game.
This project would have been shelved for a rainy day had it not been for one crazy pitch. I was out of college at Chapman. Me and Bomani are both out of school. And the natural progression was we knew we needed to tackle a feature. And we actually went out for another project, and we knew that, like, feature is next. So the idea of a feature and tackling that was the mountain ahead of us, right? No matter what it was. And, you know, I always told him I had this love and affinity to develop Rock Steady Row, but I think that just part of our naivety out of school and our fears of what is accepted now, because, you know, every one of our colleagues was looking to do a feature. We're just like, man, it's always about what makes your idea special enough for someone to greenlight this, you know? And I know personally in mine, I was just like, man, no one in their right freaking mind is going to greenlight a film that is a spaghetti western in a college thing. Like, no one. Like, I just couldn't fathom the idea of going to a pitch meeting and, like, people being like, that's a good idea, you know? Like, I thought it was cool. When I thought it was cool, everyone I talked to thought it was cool, but I thought it was, like, one of those niche things that you just, like, you know, you can talk about with a friend, and it's one of those rainy day things. And if I had enough money sometimes saved up, I could personally make this film. Well, it happens to be that I were able to grab a manager out of school, and we start going on like pitch meetings, and I start getting in the office different places, and one of them is with this production company called Supergravity. And I go in there, and I actually go in for a different script, and we, you know, it wasn't a script that worked out for us, but they kept their eye on me, and in the meantime, you know, me and Bomani kept busy doing, like, other shorts and so forth, and we went out to they actually hit me up again, and we went out to talk. We went out to lunch just to talk, and they said, hey, listen, like, we really like your shorts and so forth. We're looking to get into features, and, you know, this is going to be a little bit lower budget, but we would like to talk to you about doing a feature film. Do you have any ideas that could fit within X amount of dollars? And, you know, hearing that amount, I was just like, okay, that's tight, but you know what? Like, this is awesome. Like, someone's coming to me and saying, hey, like, let's make a feature. So I basically just told them, give me the weekend, you know? And over that weekend, I was, like, sitting down with Bomani and other people, and I was just, like, going like crazy. I was trying to think really hard about contained ideas. I was thinking, like, all right, like, for this amount, it's got to be smart for a filmmaker to make essentially, like, you know, their phone booth where just, like, it's like one actor in a contained space, and figure out the cheapest way possible doing this. Of course, I have these ideas, but when I go into the pitch meeting, the only one that can come to mind, the only one I feel like I can really talk about is Rock Steady Row. And so after all this effort over the weekend, they say, well, let's talk about ideas, because it's a couple. I save these other ideas for last, and I start with Rock Steady Row. And of course, I give it my full passion because it's the actual thing I really want to do. It's burning in my heart. And so I pitched it to them with all the fibers in my body, and the looks in the room were so great. There was huge smiles, there was laughs, that people were getting it. And they literally told me, we don't want to hear the other ideas. We want to do this one. So I walked out of that office that day with a huge grin on my face, because it was like, fuck yeah, we're doing this movie. But then I also paused and felt like my heart was palpitating. I was like, oh shit, we actually have to make this movie now. So the first thing I did was call Bomani. I was just like, Bomani, time to get to work. It was kind of one of those, like, it's like a scene from Men in Black where people put on sunglasses. They're just like, there's no fucking around now. Like we're in it. Like, there's no getting out. So,
and I definitely made that look good.
Yeah. We went to work and Bomani can attest to it, but he had the script knocked out in a month.
What's the timeline on this? When is this pitch meeting that you're having?
This was around February or March. March of 2016. And Bomani had a finished script by April of 2016. And we went to production that following September.
And how do you gather your crew? I mean, by this time, I imagine after doing all this work, you guys have a pretty good network of people that you can rely on for this.
That's where, I mean, honestly, I count my blessings every single day, to be completely frank with you. We both have accumulated an amazing team, not only starting from, our grounds in Redlands where he grew up, but from where Bomani went to USC, and then from my people at Chapman. During that time, like, we had the distinct honor of meeting so many awesome people. I mean, I call it the family just because, like, of my entire time at Chapman, like, of all the cool things I got to experience, all the great faculty, all the great times and facilities, like, it was the people that made my experience worth, literally everything. My cinematographer, my sound designer, all the crew, 95% of our entire crew was all based off that family from Chapman. It was an opportunity that was really cool because we got to take everyone right out of graduation and put them to work that we knew, as many as we could. And that includes a lot of the actors too. I mean, my lead actor, Heston, also went to school with me, and I got to do many projects with him. A lot of my actors as well, also from Chapman. We pulled selects. There's only a handful of people cast-wise, and very few crew that did not go to the school whatsoever, but everyone else was coming hot off that boat. It's something that was very unique about us, that we were very, very mom and pop in that sense, and I don't think the project would have been able to be done any other way because of our limitations. It was the people that stepped up to the plate and really, really came to bat for the team. But, I don't take it lightly that they stepped in and did favors for me too. And it was because of that we were able to make it happen. And, like, I literally cannot stress enough, I cannot be more eternally grateful for those people. They're the ones that made Rock Steady Row happen.
So many smaller budget films live or die by the performances. You can have a great crew, great look to it, all this kind of stuff. Then you get that one dingbat who just can't deliver their lines properly, and just the whole movie crumbles like a house of cards. That is not the case with Rock Steady Row. And you mentioned Heston. I'm curious about the rest of the cast for this because they are just phenomenal. Everybody is on their A game for this.
Well, that means a lot. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it. Casting was so much fun. So, like I said, like, there was, Heston and past that, we had pulled a lot of people from people we worked with before. But for our newcomers, the casting was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do our first chemistry reads and to get people in the room. When we first saw Diamond for Piper, I mean, like, it was kind of an instant match. She brought so much bravado and personality to a role that, like, really needed. She was the voice of Rock Steady Row, and, like, being like that journalist, like, we had to have someone who just, like, had that fireball spirit and energy. And the first reading she had with Heston when they came in, I just remember, like, I sent it. I don't know if the one was able to be there with me that day, but I sent him over that video, and he just, like, had this huge smile on his face. It's like, yeah, like, she's right. And she was one of our first casting calls that we made. And then I was going through different, like, thought of, like, the visual of Andrew Palmer's character until Logan Huffman walked into the room, and, like, he brought a combination of, like, menace and car salesman to Andrew Palmer that was so great. Like, you couldn't take your eyes off of him. His eyes were so captivating. He was very seductive with his take on Palmer, and he brought such a unique touch that, like, when he first read in that room, I was just like, man, this has to be Palmer. This has to be him. And when I put him in the reading with Heston and I got to show him to everyone else. Like everyone agreed, like, he was the loose cannon on set, and I needed that so bad. And he brought so much fire to the game. And so to counteract that, we needed someone that was cool as ice, someone that was calculated and cool for Augustus. And once we found Isaac, we had a really good matchup, because once we put them together in a room, there was a lot of tension. They built up a lot of tension really quickly, and it's like they had a natural. They were able to build like a fake, like natural, like rivalry and like a really good chemistry together. And I mean, when we first got on set, like it was like fireworks too. I remember the first thing we filmed with them, I was just like, oh crap! Like we picked two amazing villains to counteract each other, and we had someone who just like you never knew what their next step was going to be, and then you had another, with Augustus, who had someone who just felt like they calculated every single move 5 steps ahead of them. And so between just starting off with that, like we already had like a great start. And then bringing in Allie for Yvette, she brought so much heart to a role that really needed it, especially with like the turn I have in all of our sorority gals. When we brought in that team, like it was so cool to bring them on set and have them bring so much flair, because that was such a huge part of the ending that we wanted to change, that we saw in Fistful of Dollars, was like we always have this damsel in distress that is saved by the Clint Eastwood character and rides off, and we're not trying to diss on those films. We love those, like we said, with all of our heart, but times have changed, and we need to spin stuff on its head. And although we're taking the main exoskeleton catalyst of like what these films are, we knew that we wanted the damsel to do some ass kicking herself, especially in this case, especially with what she's going through. So, having that turnaround at the end and having it be that like not only the damsel herself, but a whole squadron, a representation of this lost sorority to come in and not only save our main character, but come in and do the final ass whooping, was a huge part of the script. And so we had to have the right representation. We had to have actresses who could really bring the fire, and each and every one of these guys like did fucking awesome. And it was so much fun with them on set. The fight, that final fight, was one of the first things we filmed on location, and we had such a fun time. I mean, when I brought the paddle in that said Maneater, they just grabbed it and were like, yeah, let's go. Like, and it was so cool to have that fire and energy coming into set, because like they didn't question like what the script was. They were just they read the script. They're just like, I get this. Let's do it. Let's get on the set right now. Let's go. And to have an entire cast that was down for the cause for such, for us, felt like such a crazy idea, one to pull off, but two to even show, was really special. I mean, it was really special. And I can attest from mine that it was really cool to have people start, speaking out the words and actually, get into the story.
Yeah. There's not much more to say about that, because like they did such a fantastic job of bringing things to life that I hadn't even like perceived, because you write it and then like, you see it a certain way, or not a certain way. It's like, I feel like I do a good job. Like when I write, it's like I'm willing to let it go, it's like, because I believe in like the process of people coming in and taking it and like, standing on what you're doing to make it better, the actors and actresses, like, for sure, like took it to a whole new level,
I don't want to sound trite or anything, but I have to ask about the hair. The hairstyles of Isaac and Logan are just amazing. They're hypnotizing.
I definitely wrote that into the script because I have like I don't know. I mean, it definitely comes from something personal for me, because like my family, like literally everyone in my family, like they all just had afros like my whole life. And I always like looked up to their afros even as a child, and was just like, I have to get an afro that's perfect like theirs, and like shines, and like I could never get my afro to be as like perfect as their like 70s, 60s like afros that they have. There's even like this giant picture of my dad at his graduation, and he has this afro that's just like, that's great. And so like I would always try to do it, and I couldn't do it. So, but that's where like Isaac's come from. And like, as far as like Andrew Palmer, it was just like, I don't know, like being at college, there's just like these kids who were like, I visited this frat during the first week, and like I don't know what it was about the kids with like that shaggy ass hair, but like, you know, it's like there were a bunch of just weirdos or whatever that had that kind of hair, and so he kind of inspired that.
Yeah, it's funny. A huge inspiration for Logan, who played Andrew Palmer himself, was Tom Cruise, like that risky business style, you know. And I really liked that approach to it because he really brought like what still is today, you know, very considered very fratty, but he brought that classic frat too, you know. And I thought that was a really good inspiration for him to take.
I have to ask about the casting of Larry Miller and Tom McLaughlin. It was great to see those guys show up.
Oh my God. That has a huge place in my heart because I'm fans of both of them. But Tom McLaughlin, actually, we met because he's a adjunct professor over at Chapman University. We were introduced towards my later half of Chapman, and we became fast friends, and he became a huge mentor. We actually worked together after school. I was able to shoot a music video for him just because we had to work together on that stuff. And you know, he is a rock star as much as he is a professor, as much as he is a film director, as much as he is all the millions of things he is. So you know, we worked on that together, and then when it came around time for this, I told him, like, please, I gotta give you a cameo. And it's gotta be like the gravekeeper, you know, of like Fistful of Dollars, where it's just like, you know, very mysterious. You don't know how long he's been here. And we were able to play with the idea. I mean, like, we had earlier drafts of this where, like, you know, we went more into, like, that he was a student himself, but he got so far in debt that he was never able to escape. So that's why he's a janitor. Like, he's basically been chained to his college ever since because of debt, you know. We had so many different versions of that script, but this character is something that's very important to me. It's kind of like, you know, the person who's always been there, you know, the eye on Rocksteady, and, you know, someone who goes in and out, and you know, this character that works just like the Graveskeeper in Fistful of Dollars, you know, and there's so much mythos around that. And the added, you know, of course, the added spin on that coming that, like, in Rocksteady Row, that he's the thing that kind of takes over that Dean saw at the end. He's kind of the, you know, the way of showing that the school is going in a better direction, you know, that there's power to the people. And of course, Tom was brought in with open arms. And he was so excited to be on set as much as we were excited to have him. So it was really special to us. It was really cool to have him be a part of this project. And as Larry Miller goes, that was really cool for us. I know that, you know, when we were coming time to cast a Dean, you know, like, we wanted to get someone of a bigger stature in there. And, you know, they were starting to send over like lists of people that we could try and reach out to. And, you know, that list was very impressive, and it was very, you know, all those people in there had their own merit. But when they pointed out Larry Miller, I was like, you guys got to stop every phone call you make right now and get Larry Miller on board. You know, he was the guy. He was the guy that, you know, had to come in and play this, because I grew up seeing him in such a multitude of things, you know, from Seinfeld, The Best in Show, and I was just a huge fan of him. He's always made me crack up so much. I just think that, like, his dryness, his sense of humor has been so great in film. So, you know, I was very curious to meet him in person. Of course, comes around time to bring him on the set, and he's not lost it whatsoever. He has every ounce of this dryness to him. It's so great. I mean, he was so warm and welcome to all the cast and crew, but the things he brought, oh my God. He was the person that I was able to let go off book the most, because, like, he just brought so much. That was the hardest thing in the cutting room, was him and Heston's back and forth in the dean's office, because he had like so many good quips that just like went off the cuff, that it made editing a bit of a challenge, because like there was a lot of stuff, and we had different things we go to. We go for things that were off the book but funny, things that are more, you know, sincere, and like we found that balance, and like we finally got what we wanted. But we had like probably at least 2 or 3 hours, I feel like, worth of footage of just like hilarious stuff from him. We you know, calculated a whole day for that, because it was so important for us to have him on board and to get us in there. And he brought the fire, you know, and he brought everything that was Larry Miller, and I was very appreciative to have him on it.
Those kind of stylized scenes with like the red and the blue, and where we just have our main actor kind of working behind the scenes, were those pieces in the script, and also the animated sequences, were those written in the way that they are in the final film?
So the animated intro happened a little bit after. Like the script always had like a like on the front page, I wrote I don't want to call it a poem, but just like some kind of weird intro about like a bunch of stuff about being in school, and then I was like, but you can't survive it without dying, because like I felt like it was really important to like set the tone, because we're about to do some crazy ass shit, but the animated sequence came in a little bit after we shot, and like we had never, because I had just put it on the front page of the script to set the tone, but it was never like a thing to like necessarily shoot. And then after the movie was done and, and we saw first cut, we were kind of like, we really felt that was like, I didn't realize how crucial that, that was, it's like, and so, Trevor was like, can you write up like like an intro prologue thing? You know what I mean? That we can kind of go over like the history of this shit, and I was just like, yeah. And so like I wrote up, I wrote up this prologue or this, the animation season that you see. And I was like, I wrote that up, and then Trevor talked to his animation friend, and she kind of just like, and they talked about the animation style, and they put that, and they kind of put it to work.
Well, I was very lucky in the fact, this is Trevor. I was very lucky in the fact that Bomani never left. He was always part of the process down to like our very, very last, assembly of the film, putting together and spitting it out. And with that said, like I was always had him there to take a look at the cut and not only give suggestions and look at stuff, but, when we had to do any miscellaneous, voiceover or prologue or ending bit or anything that needed to be changed, he was there to consult with, look over things. And we were able to hash that stuff out together because his entire process from start to finish was always us just, being able to collaborate and work together and to, really come up with what's best for the story, because this is a brainchild of both of ours, equally. And so once he wrote stuff out, the animator friend who he's talking about, her name is Lisa Wu, and she is a phenomenal animator. And she also went to Chapman, and we got to, meet there, and I got to check out her animated work, and it was just phenomenal. Her short film was amazing in college, and I was very lucky enough to bring her on to different projects, but this one specifically was very important. And she brought such a unique flavor with her style that felt almost like a fairy tale, like a storybook that we were able to open and close this story with. And that was so important because we were discussing after we had the first few cuts of the film, and me and Bomani were able to show it and look at it and be like, okay, we essentially made like a Star Wars New Hope without showing any planets. And what I mean by that is like, imagine, if you will, like the first Star Wars, and you don't know anything about Star Wars, and you don't have that establishing crawl or the first shots of planets and you just start with like Luke walking in the desert. You think about it, if you didn't have that, you'd probably think like, where the hell is this? Is this in Arizona? You don't know quite where it is. You can't quite jump in the universe. It takes you a hot second. And we realized, as far-fetched as it sounds for us to compare our film with Star Wars, that like it's not too far different in the sense that we are asking the audience to follow us into a journey into a very, very different and metaphorical take on a setting that they actually are already aware of. You know what I mean? Like the first couple minutes of the film, we kill off a college freshman with a pencil to the neck. So people are either with us or they're not. You know what I mean? And we knew that. And so to really, really hone all that in, it was one of those things where after we showed the cut and we already had what was laid out, me and Bomani quickly realized, okay, we need to have a little bit more of an open, written invitation for people to come into Rocksteady University. And so that was where the idea for the prologue and the ending and a lot of the voiceover bits came into play. And so, me and Bomani sat down and Bomani penned them out, and we worked on them together. And that was so fortunate, it wasn't like I was left to my own accord with this. Like me and Bomani were able to stick together through this whole process, and that was huge. And Lisa was a huge part of that as well. And she brought, basically whatever we were spitting out of her, in the wordsmith table, she would look at it and be like, all right, like boom, here's how we can do this, transition this. And now was a nice working ground with, me and Lisa hashing it out and figuring out what the visuals were to match. And at the end of the day, we got what you see now in the film, which is, that opening and close. Although we knew we wanted a victory, if you will, for everybody, including the janitor. The janitor actually taking over the dean spot was actually something that was thought up in post-production, not in pre. So that was something that was actually shot after the fact. So we had to go back and shoot that.
Tell me about the setting, because the set is just incredible. Did you find that?
Yeah.
So kudos to our producer, Gia. She is the one that found it. Originally, we were going to look at doing essentially a high school that felt a little more like a prison and shoot it in that regard. But Gia had other thoughts up her sleeves, and she actually found this abandoned military fort from the 1950s up in North California, Monterey Bay. And I was kicking and screaming the entire way. I was just like, I don't think it'll work. That would be too far-fetched. And she and I did a road trip over there. And it was one of those things where, like, I think she kept looking at me, and I slowly was breaking by every minute that went by. I was like, well, and I was like, kind of like, all right, I see your point. And we took a lot of pictures there, and we showed them to people, and everyone who took a look at it was just like, what the hell is this place? Like, what is it, And it was those looks that really, like, finally, like, nailed the nail in the coffin for me. I was just like, okay, like, we got to look at this completely differently. We can't look at this as, like, a small stretch. We need to really, if we're going to do this, we're going to go into full John Carpenter on this movie and, like, completely dive into the fact that this is a campus that is super metaphorical. The windows are broken. You walk down, you're really scared for your life as the fog rolls in. Like, we wanted to go, like, full ham, Escape from New York. Like, this is a desolate, abandoned, looking college, and really drive that. So it didn't change anything necessarily script-wise, but it did change our approach and how we went with it. It wasn't like this was kind of like under the surface. It was something that was like, Rugrats, where it's like it's happening, but you kind of could see past it. This is a whole different universe. This is something where we imagine that maybe there's no college anywhere else. This is the one college in the entire United States, maybe let alone the world. And this college represents all the colleges everywhere. And that we wanted to feel like somewhere that you had to go. Like you're gonna get dropped off, and it's the survival of the fittest. And, although that's far-fetched, we know that it can feel that way to a lot of people. The idea of, your first days on college, all the tropes that you see there, all the things that happen, all the behind the scenes, all the scuff marks, and down to like even leaving with the debt. And there's not one person I know that has not been affected in some way, shape, or form by college debt. So for me, yes, it was far-fetched, but it was so appropriate. You know what I mean? It was so appropriate. And we weren't sure if we were heading the direction of John Carpenter and Mel Brooks at that point, but we knew that like we gotta bite it and we gotta go with it.
Well, you mentioned John Carpenter, and one of the biggest things that I always get from his movies is the music. Can you tell me about the score for the film?
Our composer is Josh Mosley. He is the man. So a little bit of backstory on him. He's actually brothers with an actor who's also in Rock Steady Row, who I've collaborated with a lot. His name is Jordan Mosley, and he was the lead in multiple short films that I've done, and I work with him very frequently. Him and Heston, kind of like a duo that I work with very regularly. And of course, I had to give him a part, in Rock Steady. It's one of those things where like they're kind of like the Joseph Gordon-Levitt, to Rian Johnson, where just like even if this time around like the film is not like their starring role, like they're gonna have some sort of role. I think like Joseph Gordon-Levitt was like a stormtrooper in Star Wars, something like that, so it's just like, it's got to happen. So I always have that. But Jordan introduced me to his brother a while back after I completed another short film, and he just said, hey, you guys need to link up and talk. And I remember being very wary because I love offbeat like score. I don't really like traditional stuff whatsoever. Like some of my biggest inspirations, past Ennio Morricone, like Daniel Pemberton is a huge reference there, and also John Carpenter himself, and also the score for Punch Drunk Love, Paul Thomason's Punch Drunk Love was a huge reference for me in not only this film, but another film, but I love offbeat scores. I love scores that incorporate different types of like timbres with their instruments where like, you're not just getting the classic, violin or this, you're doing something really crazy and incorporating the space, if you will. You're actually taking elements of the film and you're using that as either percussion or use it in some weird way. And again, Brick again was a huge reference to that too with Nathan Johnson's score. So, it came time for this, like, I was shopping around, I was looking at different composers, I was looking at different people, I was even looking at different, like, just like, bands or people I knew. I was stretching everywhere. And I met a lot of great people and people that brought so many unique things that, they're all talented in their own way. But it was like that scene from Back to the Future where the guy's just like, that sound you've been looking for? That's what it was like. I just like, when I finally heard it, I knew. And so, I was talking with Josh, but like, I felt like so protective. I felt like, I felt like I was a father grilling his daughter's boyfriend for the very first time. I was just like, well, listen, like I want to work together, but it's like, I want to be very, clear that like, I need to hear something first. And I want to do this and this. And I gave a huge laundry list. And the thing that was so cool, the thing I will never forget, the thing that's so special about working with Josh is that the day wasn't even over after saying that. It was later that evening. And I get a demo, and he takes every single note, and I gave a lot of crazy notes. Mind you, I mean, I gave notes that should have been way too like a composer, and he took all those notes. He took all this craziness. Like he took pencils and desks, and he made percussion out of them. He took bike gears. He took all the elements of our film just off of word of mouth and me talk about it in the outline. And he even incorporated like he had his kids like helping out. And like literally, he created this so unique demo. Like the pieces ended up being used for one bit of our score in the final run. But he created this demo. He sent it over to me, and oh my god, I was glowing after I heard it. I was glowing. It was that feeling of Back to the Future being like, this is the sound I'm looking for. And I knew dead on, right on the spot, right at that moment that like it was Josh or bust. It had to be him. And his work ethic, his ability to just come up with that so quickly, and his willingness to collaborate and experiment. And he's such a collaborative person. I mean, he the whole time, it was never about like, it was never about egos. It was always about like what serves the film best. And he served it to the absolute best of his ability. And I was so honored to work with him on this project. I mean, he nailed it. And of course, the references I gave him sprawled from John Carpenter to the spaghetti westerns of the past, but I was very careful on that because I think what I'm talking about when I say there's a lot of redone spaghetti western like sound alikes that are kind of typical like electric guitar like and I did not want that. We didn't want that that copycat feel. We wanted to do something unique, and so I gave him all these references, and one reference even ended up being scores that I knew as a kid from Super Nintendo games, which sounds very bizarre. But along the big list of like classic films that I sent him, I also sent him even video game references. And he was able to like take away what I was trying to, implore him to take away, in terms of what our score sounds like, what it feels like, what we walk away with. And he brought it all. And what he came up with was something that I was very proud of. I thought it was very unique for our film. And it created something that was a mixture of synth and also real instruments to create a very offbeat and something world, which again was a huge reference back to the films of the 1980s and 90s and John Carpenter in particular. In terms of like the characters themselves, he found something that worked for each in their own. Like Leroy, just like the samurai and like the gunslinger and like the prior movies, Fistful of Dollars and Yojimbo, he's kind of an enigma. He kind of comes out of nowhere. And so for us, our way of doing that was that his style kind of didn't have a sense of time. Like he's armed with a Walkman, and his clothing seems like it could be anywhere from like the 1980s, 90s, or early 2000s. So you're not sure where he's coming from. He's kind of this mysterious character, and so his score fit that. It had a mix of like that Walkman electronic vibe, and like that, hero quality. Whereas Palmer was a lot more, tones and sounds and the mixture of pencil against like, a desk and bike gears because of the bike ring going on. And, Augustus was probably the only character to be scored more traditionally, where he had the violin, because his was based off of a waltz, right? Because everything in society is very calculated. When they turn their heads left, they all turn it to the left. Like everything with them is very calculated. So it was this boom, 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 like everything was sounded very articulate and very sharp and very organized. And that's something that was huge for us, that every time they're on screen that they have the waltz. We have the society waltz. And so, that was a starting point. But going off of there, everything kind of fit the nature of its character. If they were a wild card, they had a little bit more of a free-flowing score. And if they were a little more organized, that changed. So Josh was able to incorporate that, after seeing like the cut of the film, and able to bring something that I thought was really unique.
So many times when I talk to filmmakers, the phrase that comes to mind is about killing your darlings. There's usually a favorite scene, a favorite bit that ended up on the cutting room floor that just had to go to match, so that the film flowed, so that everything worked. And I'm curious for both of you, especially Bomani, because, there you are at the beginning stages writing all of this stuff. What were some of those darlings that you had to kill?
There's a scene when Piper is grilling all the people and she wants them to like read her paper basically. And, there's a rant that she goes on where she talks about, hardback cover books and paperback cover books. And like, I worked really hard to make that monologue stick. And then Trevor cut it out. And ever since I was just like, you got to put that monologue back in. Now that we shaved 2 minutes out of the movie, we could put that back in now. You know what I'm saying? So like, that was definitely like, that was a darling for me. It was something that like,
to give you an indication, our film started out at an hour and 32 minutes, and it got cut down to an hour 15. So if that gives you any indication of stuff that was cut out, there's a good chunk. And we all feel it was for the best, because in our test screenings, these were things that were pointed out by multiple people that like they're just not working, or like the side plots aren't working the way they should. So we really narrowed it down and made it very slim. And got right to, like, no bullshit. We got right to business. And honestly, like the scene that Bomani's talking about, Bomani had a lot of sections where he's able to elaborate on the universe itself. And I really wish that we did get to keep some of it in there. But at the same time, past keeping it, I wish we had the full budget and time to really explore a lot of that. Like, there is definitely the more expensive version of this film where we get to see the comings and goings of how, like, the ramen noodle trade go and so forth, and I think that that's a whole different thing that would have been interesting to explore. I just think that with the type of film that we had and the budget we had, it was smarter for us to really focus purely on what needed to be focused on. I mean, at the end of the day, it wouldn't, not to say that would matter, any story, it doesn't matter how big the budget is, you want to get right to the meat, you don't want any bullshit. But I guess in some chances you have the opportunity to lavish on stuff and have a little bit more fun and play when you have the spectacle.
Yeah.
And doing that was rough on a shoestring budget.
Yeah. And one of the other scenes I was getting at was like I had written a scene where it's like and it's during that Piper scene where it kind of goes through the ins and outs of like how ramen for the students is like a use for trade and stuff like that, and how like Piper's like holding it hostage and everyone's starving until she gets them to like read the newspapers and stuff like that. And there was kind of just like this elaborate delving into all of that, and then it's like we just kind of had to leave it on the cutting room floor.
There was a whole language that Bomani developed. There was like a runner, right? There's like one person each week that was the person forced to go out and get the ramen and come back, you know what I mean? And sometimes they didn't come back. It's like that type of thing, like there's a whole universe and a whole scape of here that like could have been explored. And there's reoccurring, freshman characters that just constantly got fucked over that, we showed in the film, but there was so much more where they just got screwed over. There's a character that loses their bike, more than a couple times. There was even more, if you can believe it, there's even more scenes where we show him getting his bike taken. And the idea that like we wanted a lot of repeat jokes where like this freshman, other than our main character, constantly is getting his bike. Every time he buys a new bike, he always gets it stolen again. Like he goes through like 5 bikes in the film or something like that. And we cut that down a little bit too. We like to paint all these things going on. And again, a huge inspiration for us is Wes Anderson in terms of like always always having stuff going on in the backgrounds or the sides. And we like that. We like developing that, you know, for a universe so crazy. We really like building that world. But, you know, at some point you got to have it there to help, you know, explain the universe and have people have fun with the universe and get what's going on. But at the end of the day, people really just want to focus on your main character and what they're doing and getting to that goal, you know. And so that's where we trimmed down. We trimmed anything that did not have to do almost directly with our character.
So it's like a lot of world building was what was like axed, and it's weird because the one in when Trevor brought up the like some of the stuff I was like, oh yeah, I forgot, like I put that in the script. I was like, oh yeah, you know?
Maybe it wasn't your darling.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because that's what I was just about to say. I was like, even though all the other stuff that got cut was like world building shit, I was like, the part that hurt the most was like my monologue. I was like, no. I was like, that hurt. I was like, I draw the line at the monologue, not the world building or character building or plot stuff. I was just like, the monologue.
Some people equate filmmaking to a little bit like war, especially because, you know, people grow closer together during that, but there's also because it's a struggle. And I'm curious, what was the biggest hurdle for you guys when you were actually making the movie? What was the toughest thing for you?
Every day was a struggle. Like, there was constant things. But the weird thing is, I can think of a few particular stories, but what's more fascinating to me is how fun the struggle was because of the people I was with. You know, I mean, the one blessing I feel like I could take away for sure from Rocksteady is that, like, no matter how many struggles or how many day-to-day challenges we had, or just keeping afloat budget-wise, or, you know, the location, you know, like just being up there and everyone being outside the whole time, there was just no complaints. You know, like, everyone put on like their gorilla hat, you know, the gorilla filmmaking hat, and they just like, they rolled the sleeves and picked up anything they could and you know, brought the cars at the end of the day, and they powered through, and everyone had a huge smile on their face. And at the end of almost every day, there was at least like 4 different people playing musical instruments. You know, I know our cast member Chris Gurst brought his accordion, and several people who played guitar, and it felt like an encampment. You know, it felt like we were there just, it's like we're there as friends all hanging out camping, but we happen to be there making a film. So I guess my point with that is not to avoid your question. There was definitely struggles. There was definitely, oh my God, there was bloodshed for sure. There was tears. There was all that stuff. Like, all that stuff. There was a war. Do not get me wrong. You know what I mean? There was a war. You know, there's always drama on set. You have to diffuse. That stuff happened. But what I'm getting at is that, like, I'm focusing on the aspect of, I feel like if we were the colonies here, you know, against the British Empire, that we had the strongest force possible, because morale was super high. And that was the most important thing, you know, that morale was high, and that the whole time, that's what's nuts to me, is that if this was a war, like, we had the army with the biggest morale, because everyone throughout the entire filming, down to the last day of filming, was so in it to win it. You know, even when stuff was going wrong, it's like when we you know, lost an actor because they had to get stitches, which happened. Everyone picked up the pieces right away. No one wavered at all. Everyone knew what to do, and we just rearranged things, and we got what we needed. And on top of that, that same actor, which was Heston, our lead actor, he came back the same day, despite everyone, including the safety officer, saying, like, you do not need to do this. Do not do this. He refused, and he had to come back on set. He forced his way back on set with stitches. It was that type of thing. You know, people fell down, people got bruised, people got cut up, you know, because, like, you know, people had to do a lot of their own stunts on this, and no one bitched, no one moaned. There was no prima donnas. Everyone came in, they played hard, and they walked away with something that I think that they were really happy with.
Well, tell me, once the film is locked, what happens then? Because I know you guys played Slam Dance and won Slam Dance. Congratulations on that. So I'm curious, what was that experience like, seeing that with an audience? And was that your premiere, or had you had showings before that?
That was our very first premiere.
Yeah, this is our world premiere.
That was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, me and Trevor sat next to each other in the back, and we were like terrified.
I think we thought we knew what it was like to show, because with our shorts and so forth, you know, sitting in a large auditorium showing, I think we thought we knew after like a handful, more than a handful worth of like sitting on a screen and watching, having people watch your work in short form. We thought we knew what this would feel like. It felt a million times amplified from that, to sit, because this was a baby we had for so long. Like I said, like it's not this. We had a lot of confidence and we knew what we wanted, but at the same time, we also didn't know if it would work. You know what I mean? Like, just to be completely transparent and clear, it's just like when you do something that's crazy, you have no idea how it's going to be perceived. And we were hoping that people just got the damn film, let alone enjoyed it. You know what I mean? And to sit there slam dance, it was nerve wracking the whole way through. But afterwards, to see the reception we got was. It was, I don't know. I'm trying to give you a reference. It was like eating the best ice cream sundae you've ever had times like 500 million, or like, it's probably too graphic. So if you need to cut this out, fine. But I'm imagining it's just like, an orgasm on crack, right? Like the feeling of getting to show your movie in front of a huge audience and has such a warm reception was the most incredible feelings. And it's what we live for. And that was enough. I mean, for us, we were just like, it was cool enough to be there. Slam Dance was a huge inspiration to us. Some of our favorite filmmakers gone there, like Christopher Nolan. And like just to be there and have a positive reception, and we're like, cool, story closed. But it was even more special to, last day there, find out that we won not only the audience award, but the grand jury prize. And, that was huge for us. I mean, it was huge for us, as people, as filmmakers. Also, moving forward, it led us to a lot more opportunity, that we're developing, working on now. So it was huge for us. But in terms of the film itself, it opened up a lot more doors for a lot of different festivals to play. And we've been playing for like the past 6 months. I mean, we've had 6 months of like an incredible festival ride, and we're continuing on next month into Fright Fest over in the UK, and then we're finishing up strong here in Los Angeles on October 7th at the Hollywood ArcLight. So we'll be showing back here. So we've had a really good run. So the next stages are just getting this damn movie sold through distribution. So we'll see where that ends up. And being that it is it's a lower budget film, and there's not like besides several members, there's not like a huge A-list names in the cast necessarily, that like distribution won't be, it probably won't be, I don't know if it'll be a theatrical release, but what we hope for is like the best possible home so more eyes can see it. That's what we want. And of course it's people like yourself and people, we've had the pleasure of talking with we asked us to help us push this movie out because we want people to see the film. We want people to know about us. We want people to know how crazy we are. It's something that we want to push out to the public.
Really not a lot of words that can describe like how that felt, because, you just don't see it really coming, and like, I kind of just have this kind of overwhelming feeling of just like kind of being grateful, because it's like, all this stuff couldn't be happening, and who would have thought, some weird idea that we had, would actually resonate, so that one in itself is like, is enough for me,
Well, neither of you guys seem like you just like to sit around and not do a whole lot. So I'm curious, what are you working on now?
Well, we got a couple things in the fire. Like, me and Trevor have like we have one thing that we're kind of developing, an idea that we're developing. And then we have, another project that's like, we're hoping goes through. It's looking promising. I mean, they're both features and they're both kind of moving. While Rocksteady was shooting, I wrote another script that's kind of floating around that like I've had a couple meetings with that have opened the doors for other projects but I'm also trying to get that script made. We just want to stay in the fire,
I can tell you that this next, or even either of these next two projects are quite different from Rocksteady in terms of genre and style for sure. Still retain the heart of who me and Bomani are as filmmakers, but we've had that pleasure of being able to bounce a lot of different styles when we're working in short form. So I'd say that these projects we're working on are going to be a little bit more closer to our short film run that we did in terms of scope, style, and genre. So that's kind of like where we're changing the gears for right now. So we're moving a little bit away towards I guess you could say the crazy, slightly comedic action adventure Western, and we're moving back into some darker territory for sure.
Well, where's the best place for people to keep up on the movie, and when it does come out to DVD or streaming or wherever it's going to show up, where's the best place for them to find out?
You can always check out our website, www.rocksteadyuniversity.com, and you can also follow myself and Bomani through Vimeo. We'll put up a lot of our shorter projects on there. You know, we being, like you said, like we're not sitting around doing stuff. So even when we're in between feature projects, the ones that we want to get out there in the big scope of things, we're constantly doing shorter projects, whether they be passion or so forth. So you can always follow our work there. Anywhere you see #RocksteadyRow or anywhere in the ether that you see that, just constantly keep your eye out. And if you see us, come say hi at a screening or send us a message. Either way.
We'll find you too.
Yeah, we'll find you.
That sounded like a threat.
The idea has been introduced to us to try and do some sort of college tour, and like I don't know if that will happen, but I feel like that'd be a lot of fun to play this film at different colleges.
Trevor and Bomani, thank you so much for your time today, guys. This has been a real pleasure talking with you.
The pleasure.
Yeah, the pleasure was all ours.
Thank you, Mike.
I'm a wolf for the taste. Do the math, I ain't looking the grades. I'm just looking for grades. Grade A me, hooked in by the fangs. I got a fat ass and a jackass, and me had to be their kin. One telling me to eat everything, another one telling me just to feed off them. But I'm foxy in my speech, I'm animalistic, silver tongue in my mouth, the hand of my business. A man of decisions, I give them ideas, they hand me dividends. They can bribe, they can sweet talk me, give me eyes. They can make me bleed, rearrange my teeth, but in the end, I'm ready and rock steady. 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 Come around and they know my deeds. Profound, strategize, scheme, grow scenes. But no face for the postings on the oaks, unidentified, I keep ghosting. Drive them all crazy, scary like a dog's teeth with the rabies. I take action, bourbon, cause they carry me off with the cheese and the ladies. They can bribe, they can sweet talk me, give me eyes. They can make me bleed, rearrange my teeth, but in the end I'm ready and rock steady. 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 Rock steady.
If you enjoy this show and want more people to know about it, head on over to iTunes, leave a comment, and rate it 5 stars. Make sure you like and share us on Facebook, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Just search for Christopher Media. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Most importantly, we would like to take the time to extend an extra special thanks to you. Christopher Media could not exist without your support. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Christopher Media. Let's make some noise.